ready to dive deep into choices. Like how to make choices that make you feel more fulfilled.
Sounds like a plan.
Well, that's exactly where we're headed today with Jon Treanor's book, Fear, Masks, and Shadows. It's all about tapping into this thing called emotional intelligence. Have you heard much about that?
Oh, yeah, emotional intelligence, or EQ. It's a fascinating area. And John's book, it's really insightful, especially his own story, you know?
Right. Talk about inspiring. The guy had like a really tough childhood. Domestic violence, juvenile detention, heavy stuff.
It's amazing, though, isn't it, how he took those experiences, all that pain, and used it to understand, like, why we do the things we do.
It's like he turned his struggles into this roadmap for healing, for all of us.
Exactly. And one of the things he talks about that I found really interesting is this concept of masks.
Masks, like literally.
No, not like Halloween masks. More like personas,
Yeah.
The faces we put on for the world.
Oh, I get it. Like sometimes you don't feel like you're being your true self.
Yeah. Treanor suggests that we create these masks, these personas, to protect ourselves, especially when we're young and trying to figure things out.
It's almost like we're all in this play, right? And we're just trying to fit in, get people to like us.
Exactly. But here's the thing, and this is where it gets interesting. Treanor says those masks, they can end up disconnecting us from who we really are. Like, we push certain parts of ourselves into the shadows. Literally, he calls it the shadow self.
Wait a minute. Are we talking about, like, embracing our dark side? That sounds a bit scary, doesn't it?
It's not really about embracing darkness, more like acknowledging it.
Yeah.
The shadow self. It's the part of us where we keep all those emotions and fears and traits that we don't want to deal with.
So we're hiding from ourselves.
In a way, yeah. But Treanor says those hidden parts can end up controlling us, like a puppet master we're not even aware of.
So we're puppets on our own strings. I like that. But, so, where does emotional intelligence fit into all of this?
Well, that's the key. EQ, it gives you the power to see those strings, to understand your emotions and how they drive your behavior.
Okay, but for someone who hasn't, like, taken an EQ test or anything, what exactly is emotional intelligence? I get the feeling part, but what's the intelligence part?
It's more than just, feeling your feelings. It's about understanding them, managing them, and recognizing them in other people, too.
So it's like being able to read the emotional room, right, and then reacting in a way that's real, but also helps you navigate the situation.
Exactly. And Trainor's big on personal responsibility. He says blaming others just keeps us stuck.
Makes sense. If you're always blaming someone else, you're not taking control of your own life, are you?
Right. Emotional intelligence means owning your reactions, even when things are tough. It's realizing you always have a choice in how you respond.
Okay, I'm digging this. And speaking of choices, one of the tools Treanor talks about is mindfulness.
Mindfulness, powerful stuff.
Yeah, but I think for some people, that word just kind of, goes over their heads. How does it actually work, like in real life?
Think of it this way. Mindfulness is about hitting the pause button. It's about noticing your thoughts and feelings as they pop up without getting all caught up in them.
So instead of reacting right away, you create some space to observe those feelings before you do anything.
You got it. And it's amazing what a difference that can make. Less stress, less anxiety, and a lot more self-awareness.
Okay, I'm sold. I need more of that pause button in my life. And wait a second, doesn't Treanor have a breathing exercise in the book to help you get started with mindfulness?
It does, yeah. Want to try it?
Absolutely. Hit me with it. I think our listeners might want to give it a try too,
All right, so find a comfy position. Close your eyes if you want. And just bring your attention to your breath.
Okay, deep breath in.
Now, notice that cool air as you breathe in and how your chest and belly expand.
And slowly breathing out.
Feel that warm breath as you exhale. Notice that gentle contraction in your chest and belly. Just keep following your breath. Don't try to change it. Just observe.
Wow. It's like everything just slowed down for a second.
Right. And that's just a taste of what mindfulness can do. It's about training your mind to be present, to observe, rather than react.
It's like taking back control of your mental remote control,
Yeah,
Flipping the channel from all that drama to something more peaceful.
exactly. And when you can do that, you can make better choices, more intentional choices. You're not just running on autopilot anymore.
So we've covered some serious ground here. Masks, the shadow self, mindfulness, and we're just getting started.
Oh yeah, there's so much more to unpack. Contentment, values, finding your purpose.
Stay tuned, folks. We'll be back with more from Jon Treanor's Fear, Masks, and Shadows after the break. Back again for more of this Fear, Masks, and Shadows deep dive. And this time we're tackling something everyone wants: Contentment. Like real lasting contentment, not just that fleeting, happiness thing.
Yeah. Contentment. It's tricky, right?
Yeah.
Especially in today's world. It's like everyone's chasing this idea of happiness.
Which honestly can make you feel even less happy.
Exactly. And Treanor, he really hits on this in the book. He's like, chasing happiness all the time, it can actually backfire.
Okay.
You're always looking outside yourself for that validation, that next hit of pleasure.
It's like building a house on sand, right?
Yeah.
Not going to be very stable.
Perfect analogy. He's more about finding that solid ground within yourself. That's where contentment comes in.
So how do you even start, like where do you find that solid ground?
Treanor says it all starts with knowing what truly matters to you. Like, what are your core values?
Core values. Sounds kind of vague, doesn't it?
Maybe. But think about it. What are those guiding principles in your life? The things that make you, you.
Okay, I see what you mean. Like, what do you want your life to stand for, if you could sum it up in a few words?
Exactly. And those words, those are your core values. And once you know what they are, you can start to check, like, are my actions actually matching up with what I believe in?
That's a good point. And it makes me think of something else Treanor talks about. These scripts we have running in our heads.
Oh, yeah, the scripts,
Yeah.
like little internal programs.
Yeah. He says we pick them up from our past experiences, family, culture, all that.
Like a story you keep telling yourself about who you are and what the world's like.
And sometimes those stories are just plain wrong.
Totally. And here's the kicker. Treanor says those scripts can become self-fulfilling prophecies. Like if you think you're destined to fail, you might unconsciously sabotage yourself.
So we're trapped in our own stories.
Kinda, yeah. But the good news is we can rewrite those stories.
How? I'm all ears.
Trainor's big on challenging those negative thoughts. You know, the ones that tell you you're not good enough or you can't do it.
Oh, I know those thoughts. They can be pretty loud sometimes.
Right. But you got to learn to talk back to them. Look for evidence that contradicts those negative beliefs. Practice thinking positive thoughts about yourself.
It's like taking back control of the narrative.
Exactly. And that brings us back to emotional intelligence.
Right. Because if you're not aware of those scripts, you're just letting them run the show.
And speaking of emotional intelligence, Treanor mentions this thing called an emotional intelligence profile.
Ooh, like a personality test.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
But it focuses on those two key components of EQ. Personal intelligence and interpersonal intelligence.
So personal intelligence is all about knowing yourself, right?
Yeah.
And then interpersonal intelligence is about, like, how you relate to other people.
You got it. And by understanding your own EQ profile, you can really zero in on your strengths and the areas where you might want to, do some work.
It's like having a roadmap for your personal growth. I like that.
It is, yeah. And speaking of growth, one thing that really struck me about Trainor's story is how he dealt with shame.
Shame. Isn't that, like, a bad thing?
Well, that's what I thought too. But Treanor, he breaks it down into toxic shame and positive shame.
Okay, hold up. Positive shame. How's shame ever positive?
So toxic shame, that's like the deep down belief that you're just messed up,
Yeah.
unworthy, not good enough.
Oof, I've been there. It can really drag you down.
Right. But positive shame, that's different. It's more like that uncomfortable feeling you get when you realize you've messed up, done something that goes against what you believe in.
So it's like a wake-up call, little nudge from your conscience.
Exactly. And instead of making you feel bad about yourself, it actually motivates you to do better.
Wow. So shame can actually be a good thing. Who knew?
Right. Trainor's all about reframing our thinking, even about the things we normally avoid. He's like, all our emotions, they're giving us information. We just got to learn to listen.
It's like they're all messengers, right? Even the ones that bring bad news.
Exactly. And that's one of the biggest takeaways for me from Fear, Masks, and Shadows. Your emotions, they're not the enemy. They can actually be your guide on this journey of self-discovery.
I'm really starting to see that. So we've talked about scripts, shame, and all this deep inner work. But what about the big picture, finding your purpose?
The million-dollar question. We'll be diving into that next, along with some more of Trainor's insights on meaning and, well, just figuring out who you really are. Stay with us.
We're back, ready to wrap up our deep dive into fear, masks, and shadows. And, after all this talk about masks and shadows and mindfulness, I keep coming back to this question, who am I, really?
Yeah, the age-old question, who am I?
And I think a lot of people expect a simple answer, right? But Treanor, He kind of flips the script.
He does, doesn't he? It's not like you just figure it out one day and boom, that's it, you're done.
Right. It's more like this ongoing journey, this process of like peeling back layers and discovering new things about yourself along the way.
Exactly. And Treanor's book, it's almost like a map for that journey.
Okay, so what's on this map? What are some of the landmarks we should be looking for?
Well, he talks a lot about self-awareness, right?
Yeah.
Like really getting to know yourself, all those hidden parts we try to ignore.
Just shadow self and all that.
Yeah, exactly. And then, challenging those negative beliefs that hold you back.
The scripts.
Yep, those scripts. And of course, emotional intelligence, that's a big one. Learning to understand and manage your emotions.
It's all about tuning into your own inner compass, right? Not just following the crowd.
Exactly. It's about creating a life that feels authentic, that aligns with your values.
But I gotta say, that journey, it doesn't always sound easy. I mean, confronting your fears, embracing your vulnerabilities, that takes courage.
Oh, it definitely does. It can be tough. But Treanor's really honest about his own struggles, which makes it all feel more real.
I think people appreciate that, knowing that even someone like him, who's done all this work, still faces challenges.
Exactly. He's human, just like the rest of us.
And one of the things he talks about is anger, how he used to try and suppress it.
Yeah, I remember that part.
Like so many people do, right? We think anger is a bad thing, a sign of weakness.
Right. But he learned that it's not about denying those feelings. It's about understanding them, expressing them in a healthy way.
Turning that anger into like a source of energy.
Exactly. It's about, not letting it control you, but using it to fuel your growth.
I like that. And speaking of growth, I was really struck by what Treanor said about finding meaning and purpose. Like, he explored religion and spirituality, but ultimately,
He found that real meaning, it
Yeah.
comes from within.
yeah, from self-acceptance, from understanding who you are at your core.
And that journey, looks different for everyone. For Treanor, it was sailing.
Sailing. How does sailing fit into all of this?
Well, he was terrified of it at first, but he pushed through that fear and discovered this sense of freedom and adventure out on the open water.
It's like a metaphor, right? We're all navigating our own uncharted waters.
I like that. It's a metaphor for life. There are going to be storms, there are going to be calm seas, but you got to keep sailing.
Keep exploring, keep discovering.
Exactly. And don't forget, you don't have to do it alone.
Right. Treanor talks a lot about the importance of connection, of having those supportive relationships in your life.
People who love and accept you, even when you mess up.
Like those anchors that keep you grounded when things get rough.
Exactly.
One thing I really appreciate about Treanor's book is that it's not just like airy-fairy concepts. He gives you actual tools to work with.
Oh, yeah, totally practical. Like that mindfulness exercise we tried, it doesn't get much simpler than that.
Right, but it's so powerful. And he even mentions this thing called an emotional intelligence profile, like a way to assess your EQ and figure out your strengths and weaknesses.
It's like getting a personalized roadmap for your personal growth.
Exactly. I love that. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, but before we wrap up, Treanor ends the book with a really thought-provoking question.
Oh, yeah, the big one. What do you want from this one and only life?
Wow. I mean, it really makes you stop and think, doesn't it?
It does. It's like a call to action. Don't just let life happen to you. Choose what you want and go for it.
Step into your power, create a life that feels meaningful.
Exactly. And that's what this whole deep dive has been about, right? Giving you the tools and insights to do just that.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And to our listeners, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into that fascinating world within. Until next time.